This episode is brought to you in Vintage Vision, where low resolution isn't a bug, it's a feature. And also in Vintage Audio, because nothing says authentic like a touch of cassette hiss.
I'm going to take you back into a world of BBSing, bulletin board systems as they're called. Back in the day when we didn't really have the internet even to dial into, we connected to other computers that were hosting bulletin board software. And to do that, we had a telephone modem, and we called in to a bulletin board system that you would create an account on. Each system would have its own separate account you'd have to create. And then you can do things like send and receive messages, download files, upload files, play online games, all sorts of fun stuff. This is what entertained us computer geeks back in the day. What you see here is basically the same Amiga screen that I had back in the late 80s, early 90s when BBSing was a big thing for me. I would call a local BBS called Animation Station, and there was a couple other ones too. Some of them for good, some for I won't call them nefarious reasons, but if you ever heard of the term of pirate BBS, then yeah, those were available too. Lucky for me, they were all within local calling range because I could not afford to run up a large phone bill. Yes, back in the day when we didn't have cell phones, or cell phones were super expensive and you only got like 30 minutes a month for $100 a month. We had landline phones, and we could pretty much call a neighboring telephone exchange. In most cases, you would call your neighboring one. I lived in a small area, so I had fewer places I could call than, say, if I was in New York, and all the areas I could call and consider a local telephone call. So there was 3 or 4 BBSs in my area that I could call locally without running up a huge telephone bill for long distance charges. Anyway, I'm going to get right into it. I'm going to demonstrate this. I have this running on Amiga Forever, which runs the WinUAE emulator and does a really good job. And this, like I said, is mimicking my original Amiga setup with a hard drive. Years ago, I was able to just transfer the entire contents off into folders on my modern computer, and then I can map those folders as the original drives in the emulator. So this is as if I was using the old Amiga 500 back in the day with the hard drive and the 9 meg of RAM. I almost said gig, 9 meg of RAM. So anyway, I always kept my programs categorized, but I need to run a comm program. This Amy QWK, that I don't even know if I can use that anymore these days. I like to be able to find a bulletin board that did that, but Amy Quick, I think is what I called it, and I think it's maybe been what it was called, is a way of you could download like all the new messages in one shot off of a bulletin board system. I guess it would be considered asynchronously. You could have your bulletin or your terminal program, which called these bulletin board systems, dial up, and if the BBS supported it, you can have all the messages packed up and downloaded to a quick format, and then you run this program like Amy Quick. They also had it for other computer systems too. That will let you browse the messages and create replies offline, so you weren't tying up your telephone continuously. And then when you're ready to send your changes up, you log back on and you upload your quick file, and it takes care of answering the replies and everything. It was pretty high tech at the time, but we probably won't come across that here. I'm just going to show you just a sample of what I would normally do when I got online. So I used a program called Term, and I also had a program called Encom, and for some reason that doesn't work here. I may have had a problem with it in the past, but the term program I stuck with because I just like the look and the feel of it. Plus, it also kind of talked to you. So, and in the day, it was a neat gimmick. So I'll run term here.
Welcome to term.
Yeah, so you hear that it says welcome to term, and then it sets everything up. Now, at the bottom is a status line here. It's the modem I'm using just happens to be basically a net modem that built into WinUAE that basically treats it as a serial port. So I want to go into the phone book here. I have a couple items listed. Animation Station was the one I called a lot. In fact, I was a co-sys up of that one in South Central Pennsylvania. That's the only dial-up one that's in here right now. The rest of them, like Particles BBS, for the phone number, because it's an internet type modem, you don't need an actual phone number. A lot of internet modems will use the same commands to initiate a call, like ATDT to dial touch tone. But then instead of putting a telephone number, you just put basically a web address and port number separated by the colon here. And it will call an online bulletin board that basically all we're doing is we're replacing the telephone modem and the Ma Bell telephone system and the telephone on the other end. We're still connecting to an active bulletin board, but we're eliminating the older technology doing so. We're just doing it through modern means. So anyway, I'm going to, let's see, close out of this one. So I have like Particles BBS. I have one called The Keep, which I actually created an account on earlier today. The Anarchy Underground, Afterlife, and Computer Connection BBSs, I had problems getting to. I set these up earlier today, trying to revisit some of them, and these were telnetable BBSs, but I couldn't get them to work. Anyway, so me back in around 1990, so I fire up term and I get it ATZ OK because it initialized the modem based on a script. Okay, I might as well show that too. So here, modem settings. So modem init command. So this is what it sent to the modem every time you turned it on. And these not win modems, these net modems or Wi-Fi modems, whatever you may call it, respond to these, what they call the AT command set. And it works great. It's like, as I said, you're basically replacing everything from the actual modem, the serial port in your modem on your real computer, all the way out to the other location. So it initialized here, and I would get on here and I'd right click and choose dial, and I can pick the BBS I wanted to connect to right away. Now, when I release the mouse button, it's going to attempt to connect to Particles BBS, and in the past, you would hear it pick up the phone, dial, I think it was 70 £, because that was the code that you had to type on the phone to prevent call waiting from dropping your call. If somebody tried to call you while you're online, call waiting generates a set of beeps, but those beeps would mess up your connection and usually dump you from your BBS call. So telephone numbers back in that day were prefixed with 70 and the pound symbol to temporarily disable call waiting for that connection. But in this case, it'll just attempt to dial. You'll see when the dialing screen comes up that the phone number is the Particles BBS telnet address.
Now calling Particles BBS. Connection established.
All right, there we go. We got connected right away. You didn't have to wait for it to ring. And okay, most BBSs, they're going to have you initialize your connection. In this case, I hit return because some BBSs have plain text. This one has something called ANSI graphics, which is very popular, colorful, text-based colorful menu system, ANSI graphics. And ANSI graphics are a an escape sequence which defines color. You don't see the escape sequence unless you turned off ANSI emulation. You see down in the bottom here I have terminal ANSI VT102. This supports the ANSI colors. Those weird characters, those B characters, that is a font issue. I'm using what I believe to be a full ANSI font, but apparently this bulletin board system doesn't use all the characters, and I get what my font shows for that character sequence as opposed to what it should really look like. So this happens. But ANSI, it's called ANSI graphics. So ANSI graphics provides color where color normally wasn't, but it does it through a series of escape codes. So for each character that comes across, there might be 3 or 4 characters sent. One is the escape sequence, followed by a code, followed by a character. The codes usually, produce the colors or inverse video or stuff like that. And you can see on this opening screen, this BBS still has dial-up. So if you have a computer with the modem and a landline, or however you want to arrange the connection, you can actually call this one up directly on a telephone, really like the old days. 25 line screen. So that screen pauses every 25 lines. That's why you saw the pause. Okay, so enter membership handle number or new if I'm a new person. I'm not a new person here. I'm in here as Vintage Volts. My password. And no, it's not a bunch of dashes. This bulletin board masks the password with dashes. Actually, it masks the password with different characters each time you log on. Sometimes it's a % symbol, sometimes it's an ampersand. It randomizes it, but still, that's my password. Now it's going to check my password. And I think this is running on an original Commodore 128, which, isn't very fast, but, I am making a connection to a real computer from this emulated Amiga. Now, I could have done this same thing with a Commodore 64 emulator and used Commodore 64 program and got the Commodore 64 graphics, but I've been playing around with this. This BBS supports both plain text, ANSI graphics like this, and even the Commodore graphics set where all the special character keys on the Commodore are represented. And this is showing me, every time you log into a bulletin board, you usually get a lot of welcome messages or information. This is showing me there's new games available in the download area, new credits. Like back then, a lot of bulletin boards didn't let you just download everything they had. You had a trade-off. You had to upload something, earn credits for that, and then you would get download credits. And it was usually a 2 to 1 or 3 to 1. So for every byte that you uploaded, you got 2 or 3 bytes worth of download to use. Or some bulletin board systems will just charge you so much per month, and as long as you paid your bill every month, you get unlimited downloads. Anyway, now so this is still part of the login process. Check out the wall. Okay, normally I hit no, but for the sake of this recording, I'm going to hit yes. And it's a graffiti wall. And these are some of those weird characters, which probably are some kind of fancy lines, but I'm getting the weird characters. So people are just, I guess, putting their own graffiti on the wall. Everybody adds their own line. User ID, Simo1010, Paradroid, Smith, Figan. There's another Paradroid one. Everybody has something to say. This is kind of consider this like an inline tweet, but very short. There we go. A message from your crazy old neighbor. Get off my lawn from Smith. Pause. Oh, there's a big wall here. Maybe this is why I hit no usually, because I don't know how long it scrolls for. Yeah, we'll see if it... I think when it comes to the end, do I want to paint a message? Okay, yes, I will. And I'll go. This session is being video recorded for a Vintage Volts YouTube video. And there, I graffitied the wall. Yay me. Vandalism, fine. Okay, so the guy who runs this, known as a sysop, portmanteau system operator, had a little joke thing in there. So I'm graffitiing his bulletin board, and I got a fine of $1,000 or 1,000. It's a joke. So every BBS has its own personality. This is the personality of this one so far. Now, you can see how slow this is going. I have a baud rate set at 57.6 to simulate high-speed modem of the day, but you can see how slow this is drawing. And that is because for each one of those colorful blocks that builds this banner, there are probably at least 3, there could be 4, there could be more, there could be 7 or 8 characters, encoded characters in the background for each one of those. But that's a character, and that character is only going to go so fast at 56 or 57.6 baud. So it takes a long time to paint that banner than it does to put the actual text of the menu up on the screen. But this is what we dealt with, and this was fast in the day, very fast. Only rich people had these kind of modems. Me, I was stuck with a 9600 baud modem at the time. So I tried my best. Eventually I got a 28.8, which is technically half the speed of this. All right, so there's the menu, but it's pausing because 25 lines went by. And there we go. I have 219 minutes left on this call. Another thing back in the day is the sysop lots of times restricted people to how long they can stay on the call, because typically they only had one telephone line, and it was improper. And then it was also enforced that a single caller can't just hog up the line forever. So they put time limits on the calls. Now, 219 minutes is a lot of time, especially back then. Usually you would get 60 minutes at the most, 30 in some cases. Paid members of a bulletin board could get more minutes, but you got automatically kicked off when that timer ran out. Anyway, so we're here. What I typically do when I come in here, you can see all the different areas. I can configure my account. I can chat with Icebreaker. Icebreaker is the handle of the name of the sysop on this board. Voting booth. Let's see something that we can vote on. Okay, I just saw Amiga. There it is, K. And you got to watch for this stuff, because sometimes it might scroll off the screen, and you might not be able to scroll back depending on your terminal program. Enter your vote. Okay, I hit K for Amiga. I know it's emulated, but it's still an Amiga. So, tallying votes. Notice how slow that moves when it's constantly changing the color of the character. And I guess since this is running on a Commodore 128, it's not going to tally them very fast. I wonder if each of those tick marks is a vote. We may be waiting here for some time. Wow. There we go. 29% voted Commodore 64, which makes sense because this is a Commodore-centric bulletin board, but it will support other systems. And I guess it wasn't meant to pause there. Now it's rebuilding the menu banner. Back in the day, I probably would have eventually grown weary of this banner, always printing. Some bulletin board systems gave you no choice. You saw what came across, whether you liked it or not. I don't know if this one does it, but some other bulletin board systems can give you the option of having a quick menu. A quick menu might remove all the fancy graphics and stuff. A quick menu might also just be a prompt. I think they call that expert mode. when you turn on expert mode, all you got is a prompt because you're an expert at this bulletin board. You already know what the menu items are. They're not going to change every day. It takes time to build a menu screen for a bulletin board system for every single page of menu items. So this might be something I can do under configure your account, but I'm not going to do that. I'm okay with the banners. But back in the day, I probably wouldn't be because it takes time on the phone. I don't have that issue anymore. Okay, news from the sysop. Let's see what the sysop may have to say. And a lot of these menu items I'm choosing are found, or similarly found on other BBS systems. Okay, so excuse the dust around here. Some things are being fixed or being changed around for those who have avoided the text file area because the reader would crash. Let's just say I've spent a heck of a lot of time fixing it. It's good. It works now. It's going to be expanded. And that news was from March 29th, 2021. So that's old news. Press any key, it says. I press the return key, and I'm not getting anywhere. This is weird. Don't tell me I have to hang up and log in again. Wouldn't this be something? Oh, there we go. Oh, now that I have your attention, Deluxe Empire, Regular Empire have been reset, finally. Empire is an online game. I may not do that this session here. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of news articles. So September 24th, I had some time to work on the BBS today. I fixed a bunch of online games that were broken before, probably that Empire one. So yeah, you can go online and play text-based games, turn-based games too, where you take a turn. When you log off, other players can get on. They take their turn. Sometimes it's space battle. Sometimes it's it might be an online chess or checkers game. The bulletin board system manages all of that. Trade Wars was a very popular game at the time. You basically try to build up an empire trading stuff. You get so many turns per day in most cases, and then you can do things during those turns. You can mine for stuff. You can transport stuff. You can buy stuff. You can sell stuff. You can attack others. And steal their stuff. It was a very popular game. I remember playing it a lot. I think there was an exploit that was available, or not available, that was there on the game. At the time, I didn't know what the exploit was. I've heard of gaming exploits like if you get so many turns per day, if you properly hang up your call by logging off the system, that's when it tallies your moves. Other people would be able to get additional calls each day or additional turns each day by simply dropping carrier. What did that mean? That means you abruptly hung up your modem. You could do that by either just pulling the phone cable off the back of the modem, or in your terminal program, you could I'll show you here. I'm not going to hang up, but you can do there's a hang up menu option. That would basically force your modem to disconnect by sending 3+ symbols, which puts the modem in command mode, and then you do an ATH to hang up. So yeah, people found cheats to play games which made them less fun, but I'm concerned here because I hit the enter key so many times that this is going to keep rebuilding. It's going to keep rebuilding this menu. Okay, good. It didn't have to keep rebuilding. All right, so I'm going to go straight in, and actually, no, I'm going to go to the transfer file menu. So again, back in the day, you can't find any software, or you want to find software. You can go into a BBS that supported your computer system, and you go into the downloads area. In this case, it's considered the file transfer area. And there is that menu again. Yeah, I had to cut my audio there. I was getting a phone call. I forgot to silence my phone. So anyway, it gave time for the transfer to the transfer menu to load. So you can see here that you can upload files, you can download files, actually download flagged files. Some bulletin board systems, you could just go into a file menu, categorized file menu typically, and you could just find a file and immediately download it. Other bulletin board systems, you could queue up the downloads. So you would go in and flag the file, and you go in and flag more than one file, and then at the end of flagging them all, then you can download them all at once. Downloading was not as easy as it is, or not as simplistic as it is today. Excuse me. Downloading requires you have a specialized communication protocol set up in your terminal program. Xmodem was one of the earlier popular ones, but Xmodem required you could only download one file at a time. You couldn't batch up your files. Y-modem was the next better one that's popular, and that will do multiple files at once. It just sends a continuous stream, and it handles breaking the files coming down into their separate files on your computer. I think Y-modem wasn't very popular because Z-modem came out shortly after. I think Y-modem would not, like, if even with X-modem and Y-modem, if for some reason your call got disconnected, you'd have to start that transfer all over again when you got back in. Then out came something called Z-modem, as you see in the protocol down here. Not only will Z-modem support batch file downloads, but if your call gets disconnected and you go back on again, the BBS can continue from where that left off, and your terminal program will continue from where that left off. So it's an inconvenience when you lose your connection, not a death sentence. So for here, I'm just going to go and change directories. I don't know what directory I'm in right now. So, oh no, view directories. There we go. Hit V. I hope this isn't a very long page. Okay, so we have an uploads category, C64 games, newer ones, Commodore Plus 4 files, Commodore 128. Okay, you get the picture here. Commodore collections, CSDB files, PET and B series. Okay, so nothing here for the Amiga. But you know what? I'm going to try to download something anyway. So I'm going to go into, let's just do old Commodore games. Let's go number 2. Okay, so I'm in a download category for C64 games 1982 to 2001, and it looks like it's going to have a separate directory for each year. Okay, let's just go to the beginning. Let's go A. Files from 1982. So now it's loading up that folder, and it looks like I'm going to get all the files. Now, I've been in this before. If you were a new person here, I don't know if this actually paused on each page. You just have to quickly read what's there, and this is where going slow actually helps. But remember the number. This is something that is this method of file downloads could be different. If there's 10 BBS systems out there, there's 20 different ways of managing or browsing through it. Okay, so this does do a pause. I'm going to consider downloading Burning Rubber, number 11. But because I have a pause here, I think I have to wait all this out. Or does it support? Okay, so let's do question mark for help. Cursor keys move through list. Plus and minus are page up and page down. F is flag files. D is download flag files. Okay. I think the problem here is my cursor keys don't map properly to what this bulletin board system will take. And that has been known to happen. It's not common, but it's not uncommon. I also pressed any key. Hopefully this will respond to it soon. That's what it is. It was waiting to update stuff. It queued up so many of those flashing texts that I was not fast enough responding to it. Let's see what I can do here. Pause. You see that arrow that appeared up here? I believe my cursor keys are supposed to let me move that, but my cursor keys are not working that way. So maybe I'll just hit Q to quit. And I won't do anything here. I gave it the old college try, but I'm not going to spend this video trying to troubleshoot that. Just know that back in the day, that's a lot of people who went out and bought modems did it so they can do this, so they can find files that they can download and use on their computer. So while this is loading the menu again, I'm going to go into one of the other popular aspects of bulletin board systems, and that's reading messages. It's like message boards that you see today. They had their beginnings in something like this. You'd have message sections and message categories, and you would post a message. Except these messages are kind of like in a stream as opposed to a randomly clickable category. You don't use the mouse much with bulletin board systems. That's the mouse cursor that you see here is me interacting with the communications program term, not interacting with the bulletin board system. So I'm going to hit Q to go back to the main menu, and guess what we're going to see again? That banner. Messages here is there's going to be, every bulletin board system had a message number 1, and usually that was the sysop's welcome message. Then the highest message number would be the most recent message that was there, and they're all sequential. So message number 1 to message 1,000, 2,000, 10,000, 16,000, 28,000. It depends on the popularity of the bulletin board system, but most message areas on a bulletin board system is going to carry out that way. Every message has a number. Whether that number is unique through all the messages or only unique through the category is probably a configuration of the bulletin board software running on the remote site, remote location. This one, I believe it's a unique number on the entire site. So like if I remembered a message number because I want to get back to it, I can go directly to that message number. I would write it down because copy and paste wasn't quite as easy as it is today. So a lot of times you kept a notepad here beside, or in the case of the Amiga, I can grab the top of it. Oops, I can grab this, pull this down, open up a notepad type or text pad type program and put those values there. I can switch, between different programs because that's one of the things the Amiga did. And that came in handy when you were downloading a large file and you wanted to do something else. You could switch back to the operating system and do other stuff while that was downloading in the background. I'm not going to praise the Amiga anymore in this case because it upsets some people and makes other people happy. I'm not going to get any further into it. I'm just stating fact. Anyhow, so we're going to go read messages. So it says here, read message boards and mailboxes M. And I'm not hitting enter after this. I hit the letter. It's a single letter command. It responds automatically to the letter. Some bulletin board systems, you have to hit the letter and then hit enter. And there are some bulletin board systems out there that I do not know who designed them. Probably some very OCD, highly technical, Sheldon Cooper-like person that created an archaic, cryptic command sequence just to get into the next menu category. I have seen stuff like that, and I'm using modern concepts to explain it. But there were some very poorly engineered bulletin board systems out there. They were powerful if you can get past the not archaic, the cryptic methods of telling the bulletin board where you want to be right now. You can see here there's plenty of options for working with messages. There's the message boards that has the message commands. You see there's 3 separate columns. Mailbox commands. Yes, you can have email here, but it's not your name at something or other. It's just email dedicated solely to you and your persona on this bulletin board, and on anybody else that's on this bulletin board. There were services that sysops could connect into or buy into or whatever, and the name of it is on the tip of my tongue. I may just blurt it out when I remember it, but there was the ability for a sysop to take messages that were categorized into certain areas and package them up, send them off to another bulletin board near them, and then they in turn will expand that, put it in their own copy of that national or worldwide network of messaging, and then pass that packet on. It'd be like a web of packets going, and these bulletin board systems would actually call each other and pass this around. You could communicate worldwide, but it would take maybe 2 or 3 days for it to get to somewhere on the other side of the earth. But it worked. It's not instant like today, but this is what we had. But typically, you were only interacting with the people on the bulletin board you're calling. So the next bulletin board, you'd have a whole different set of messages. So I'm going to hit read messages here. And the way this one works is it's going to tell me if there's any new messages. Well, after it asks me how I want to read them. So do I want to read just one message board, all the selected message boards, new messages in all selected, or select message boards? You see each one of those starts out with a letter, O, A, N, and S. And you see my options here. They're all lowercase except one, A. That means if I just hit the return key, it's going to default to all selected message boards. So I'll hit that. There are 2 new messages. So there's 2 new since the last time I logged in, which was, as of this recording, about 3 hours ago. So I'll hit, see, Y is capitalized, so hitting return selects that by default. So I'll hit Y. And we'll see where these messages are. So it's going to go through all the different categories it has and find the new messages. Okay, so there's one in the general hangout checking in and hellos from a user named Smith. Hello from Croatia. I guess they're responding to a message. It says, nice find, that is hard to find, and welcome to Particles BBS. Okay, so Smith, I think, is replying to whoever originally wrote hello from Croatia. So I can bring up a menu of options if I want to do something here. Like I can navigate. I'll hit the question mark, and this will show you some of the things I can do while I'm here. If I want to reply to this message, I can hit R. If I want to go to the top of the message, I can hit T. If I want to jump to another category, up or down, there's lots of different things you can do, and each bulletin board system running on different bulletin board software does things differently. If there's another bulletin board I call that uses the same bulletin board software on the back end or on the server side, then the menus are pretty much the same, even though they may look different. They'll have the same features. I wanted to see if I can't see the previous message to this, but I'm not really worried about that right now. I'm just going to hit return to go to the next new message. Okay, I guess Smith was in here before me. Thread aliens. Okay. So they're talking modern computer and online stuff on a vintage bulletin board. And by the way, this Particles BBS, I believe, was actually running in the day back in the 80s and 90s. The guy who originally ran it is the sysop here. That's the icebreaker handle. And he's just basically keeping it alive, which is nice. I mean, it's cool to see this stuff. For those of us old fogies that are going to yell at you to get off our lawn, we like seeing this stuff from time to time. It just brings back, those memories. And then you younger generation are going to have your own thing too. So don't laugh. Okay, I read this. If I wanted to reply, I can hit R. If not, I'll just hit enter to go to the next one. And it's just going to search for all the remaining new messages and all the categories in the main message board. You can see these categories may change. There may be new ones. Some may get deleted, although I doubt they'll delete any. They might add more, if anything. But if I don't log on to this in, say, a month, then there'll be a lot more new messages for me to read. I guarantee you. This board is pretty busy. I'm saying here, continuing more message boards. I'll hit enter for yes, because that's capitalized. And we'll see what other message boards there are. Read, there are 0 new messages. Read all new. I'll hit end for now. Okay, so now we get to see all the categories. If I would have hit yes, it would have basically displayed each one of these, but there wouldn't be any new messages. It'll eventually get to the next thing where I think this bulletin board actually hosts vintage or classic Usenet message categories that's integrated in there. I never looked into them. I just saw that it has it, but I don't know if it's a live connection to the current Usenet, whatever is left of it, or if it's just archive titles and they're being recreated here. So let's just try one of these categories here. Okay, Amiga discussion. B. Why not? I'm running an Amiga. So see the message numbers? Low message number 3259. High message 3608. Last one I read is 3608. What do I want to start with? Message 3608 is by default. I want to go back a few messages. So let's do message 3600. Actually, I have to be careful here because these numbers, I believe, are site-wide, which means there may not be a message 3600. 3608 might be the only last message. So I'm going to go 3550. Let's see what happens. See, 3554 was the next one since then. And this one was for me. I wrote this back in November 2024. And I'm talking about how, I replied here. So I was quoting Devarin, where he said, anyone else play this game much? It was about Frontier Elite 2, which was a popular game started out in the Commodore 64 and I think the Spectrum. So I must have just copied or quoted those 3 lines, and I say I play the modern version of Elite. I guess I meant to say bugs can and will be part of the Elite universe. However, I'm sure the modern version bugs get fixed rather quickly than the older Amiga versions of the game. Okay, that's right. We're in the Amiga thing. Frontier Elite was made by a company called Frontier. Elite was on the Commodore 64 and the Spectrum. Elite 2 came out on the Amiga. And the company Frontier makes Elite Dangerous now, and it's been around since almost 8 or 9 years. For the PC, it's a fun galaxy-wide open world, open galaxy. So I guess I was mentioning, this, and I believe I was actually connecting to this bulletin board directly from my actual Commodore 128C R&D with a net modem connected to it. So I was actually using real hardware on, real Commodore hardware on this one. Anyway, so there was a reply to this one. Okay, so Code Sue was replying. I don't know if they were replying to me or they were replying to the previous person, but they were replying to the thread. Okay, so I can keep hitting enter and keep reading these messages until I get to the end of them. But this is how we kept in tune with the rest of our smaller worlds back in the day. BBS brought a lot of people together, but usually the people were in your own community or could afford dial into your community to get to the BBS that housed stuff. So popular BBSs had a lot of people, and the unpopular ones did not. Many of them came and fell. Many of them, like this particle BBS, were so popular they were able to hang around and basically transfer to modern environments that simulates the older environment. Anyway, so I hit pause here. I think I hit Q to quit, but I'm going to hit the question mark for menu to be sure, because a lot of times I just get on here, I read messages, I keep in touch with people, I reply as needed, and then I log off. I have the same routine. I very rarely do anything in this menu other than maybe jump to the next thread. I might get caught up in a thread that said there's 24 responses, but it's for a topic I don't even care about. And at the time, I'm like automatically going through all the new messages. I can hit J and I can just jump right out of the category that I'm in. So it says here Q is quit reading. So I'm going to quit reading. All right. Am I sure I want to quit? Yes. So that's the end of more messages board. And here we go. Continue in retro Usenet board. I'm going to hit Y. Just so I can, okay, no new messages. So if I hit no, I'll get all the retro Usenet categories. You can see that I don't know if these are direct connections or, as I said, they may have been snapshotted and mimicked and left here as a copy to be used, but you can see there's active ones and there's new ones. There's not a lot of numbers here. So, although considering the state of the old Usenet, this could be live, or it may be updated every day or something like that. Maybe the sysop here just, gets those on what's left of Usenet and copies them in here so people can view them here locally. I do miss Usenet. I really do. I wish we could do something. I used to actually carry a subscription to some of the basic readers, and I remember when Google had direct connections to it until they started putting their own Google groups intermixed with it. Then it just kind of like absorbed it, and then Usenet kind of died away. But Usenet was the shit. Now I'm going to have to put an explicit rating on this video. I'm going to go in, I'm going to look at G. Low message 1, high message 273. Okay, let's just start with message 1. Okay, so these were from the day. Look at that, Wednesday, 29 April, 87. That was before I even knew what Usenet was. Just saw an advertisement for the leading edge PC clone equipped with a built-in 20 megabyte Bernoulli disk drive. Funny that Bernoulli came up. I actually have a Bernoulli box right here on my desk. It was a 10 megabyte Bernoulli box. It was a dual box. It was supposed to have two 10 meg Bernoulli drives in it, but one of them was not there. It had a cover on it instead. The other one was bad, so I actually repurposed the box recently. I put a 3 in it because the Bernoulli drives are the same size as a half-height 5 1/4 inch floppy drive. So I put a 5 1/4 inch floppy drive on one side and a 3.5 inch and a 5 1/4 inch caddy on the other side. Hooked them both up to the power supply that's in the Bernoulli box. It's an external Bernoulli Bernoulli box case and connected a grease weasel to it. So now this repurposed Bernoulli box, which is now my grease weasel box, lets me do all my grease weasel disk archiving and creation just by repurposing old hardware. So back in '87, there, who would have thought something like this could be done with, with the case of a Bernoulli external Bernoulli box? But this is a flashback in time. I guess I could find an actual true Usenet resource out there that's still live and compare these messages one for one. I don't think I'll see that. It could also be, since this bulletin board was operating back in the day, that these are original messages from that time, as opposed to current message. Well, no, it's not current. It's 1987, but it could be original messages at that time that the sysop managed to preserve and re-implement when he brought this system, Particles BBS, back online again. So that could be the case. This may just be a snapshot in time. But here's where you can see a lot of the early forms of email addresses: 1226 at university.ulol.cs.ulol.edu. They really used domain names and what do they call those? Prefixes, subdomains. They made them more complicated than they are today, but that was probably for a reason. That's kind of how they categorize stuff. At least you were able to use names. Anybody have a CompuServe account and had to try to remember their number, number, and it was very difficult to get a glimpse or get an idea of where that number came from. Oh, there's somebody's CompuServe number. Where are they from? They couldn't tell. Here with the early forms of email addresses. Oh, they're from University of Lowell. Anyway, so I'm going to quit this. Continue, and who wants to be a sub-op board? Now I'm going to actually quit reading messages, so I'm just going to hit Q. If I hit N, then I'll go to the next available message section. But I'm going to hit Q to quit. I don't want this video getting too long. It's already nearly an hour. I didn't know I was talking that long, but that's a trademark, if not a hallmark, of most of my videos. Some people say that they're very long. That's fine. You can say that. I don't care. I do what I do just to share information. So, unless I see something else that piques my interest on this main menu, if this is the main menu, because right now I can't tell until it gets done drawing the banner, I'll probably log off. Okay, so we're in the message menu. Now, some bulletin boards will put the option to log off, which is the proper way to log off of a bulletin board system. You don't just want to drop carrier. A lot of bulletin board systems will put the log off option in every menu. That way you don't have to work your way back. This one is not that way. I actually have to quit to the main menu because it's only the main menu that I know of that has the log off option. So I'll quit to the main menu, and once again, we're going to watch the banner draw slowly. I should be able to run this at like full internet speed, because I think I've changed the rate to the highest the Amiga will go, and this way through emulation, the force limit through emulation will be, what is it, 115,200. I had set that for this, but I still get the same speed drawing the ANSI graphics. So I think what's happening is the emulation speed, or the bridge between the emulator serial port and the internet, might be at a fixed speed. And I haven't really looked into changing it. So no matter how, because I know this actually runs faster when I go to this bulletin board on a real Commodore computer. Um, it's just so much faster. But that because I'm not using ANSI graphics, I'm using Commodore graphics, and I don't think the Commodore graphics are as busy because every character has a single value. It does not have to have escape sequences to change stuff. Even changing to the color red is a single character, not a 3 or 4 character escape sequence. Anyway, the main menu says here, H log off. Don't know why the H. Most of the bulletin board systems of the past had O for log off. That was what, or so O was a very common menu item for logging off. H for log off might be back in, considering the age of this bulletin board and when it came out, there may have not been many set standards. So H may have been a choice, but they built their menu to support O because it's more common to some people, people who came in late to the bulletin board type stuff. Either way, every bulletin board can be different in that sense. So, one last thing. I'm sorry to do this to you. Information about particles. This will give you the details I've been trying to rattle off about what particles BBS is like. Okay, so it identifies me by my first name. Oh, I thought particles came out in the 80s. No, 1992. So anyway, here's the story. With a Commodore 64C and a 2400 baud modem, and it used the Image 1.2 software. The name comes from a twist on the way BBSs were named back in the day. Particle board. Oh, I get it. Now this board's running on a real Commodore 128D with 640K of memory. That's a lot. A Swift Link cartridge that provides the telnet connectivity. A CMD hard drive. Those are expensive back in the day and probably even more expensive now if you can find one. But basically it had a large hard drive. That's why it has all the file storage space. 4 gig was an awful lot back in the day, or 16 million Commodore blocks. How many blocks were available on a Commodore 1541 floppy? Gosh, I should know this. I just never pay attention. 640 blocks, I believe, is how many were on a floppy disk, a standard Commodore floppy disk. So you do the math. But yeah, that's a lot of space for a Commodore bulletin board, especially back in the day. So anyhow, now you know. Now you know the real truth instead of what it was I was trying to remember. And I promise I'll make this one last time. Maybe I can get this under 60 minutes. I'm at 57 minutes, 50 seconds. It might take 2 minutes to draw this menu. And remember when I told you about how you get so much time on a bulletin board? Well, if this was a telephone-based connection and you were running to that last second of that last hour, or the hour that you get, it will drop you right in the middle of this menu. That's how cruel it was. Most bulletin boards that I've gotten onto that I've run out my time would do that. I don't recall any of them that actually waited until the menu drew and gracefully said, I need to, disconnect you now, and give you a chance to acknowledge it before it did it. I don't recall many that did that. Usually when that timer was up, snap, you were off, So if you were quick at redialing, you can get back on if the system allowed you to be the next caller after yourself. Sometimes that's the case where you couldn't call back within a certain amount of time and be the last caller. Anyway, so I'm going to log off here. So I'll hit O because that's the common log off. Log off now, yes or no. Some bulletin boards, once you hit that O, that's it. You're off. You made your choice. This one, asks you a few more questions. Do I want to log off now? Yes. Enter a message to the next caller. So you saw at the beginning somebody left a single message. I can leave one here. I'll just put thanks for the tour. And I'll just put my handle. No, actually I'll say my handle because that'll be and hit return. So the next person who calls in will see that. Or if when they leave, it says here, press enter to keep the old one, this one will stay until somebody actually changes it. And it's going to draw, another banner for logging off. And this one has all the weird characters. Okay, so we'll wait it out here. How's it going faster? Well, that's because I'm moving my mouse and it's doing something with the serial speed. So maybe it would have gone faster had I wiggled my mouse. And I think that's just an artifact of the way the emulation works. So here's some other bulletin boards I can connect to if I wanted to write these down and give them a shot. And then I can get on particles.org or facebook.com/particlesbbs. They have their own page. And then it does the 3 pluses and hangs up. I'm done. It logged off. I can verify that I logged off by just simply hanging up, which will basically send the 3 pluses and an ATH after a time. There we go. This call will cost you $1.15. Why does it say that? Back in the day when I had mentioned at the beginning, where if you had to call long distance, it's going to cost you. And it wasn't always cheap, but there was usually a fixed rate depending on what time of day you call, fixed rate per minute. So this terminal program, and I don't know where those settings are, maybe under miscellaneous, no. But you can set the per minute rate for your long distance calls. So it will tell you how much it'll cost when you're done. So you're not surprised later on when you get your bill. I don't know where that's at. I'm not going to worry about it. Anyway, so now it's kind of a standard bulletin board session for most people who just got on to catch up on messages, and then they'll go back the next day, next week, whatever their regular interval is, and do that again. Meanwhile, I'm going to quit this program, and it'll tell me bye.
Bye.
That's one thing I liked about the program at the time. And that's it. As I said before, a lot of my videos are long-winded. I don't care. If it's entertaining, great. If not, well, maybe the next one will be even more entertaining. But, welcome to a small piece of my world. My common activities in the past merged with the recreation of those common activities today. And until next video, give it a shot. Try doing a BBS. It can be fun.